Every farm has a story. When it comes to dairy farming, these stories are often only heard by the animals raised, the land stewarded, and the family that makes it all possible. Join me, Dairy Gal Val, as I interview individuals from across the dairy industry, both within the United States and across the globe, discussing topics like farm management, the food industry, ag business and technology, and most importantly, their farm story. This is the Dairy Hour Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Dairy Hour Podcast. I am your host, Dairy Gal Val, or Val Levine, and I am joined here. This is our last episode in our small business ag series, and I am joined today with Dr. Rob Harding of the Microgreen Institute as a part of Renaissance Ag. How are you, Dr. Harding?
I'm doing very well. It's nice to be with you today.
Yes, I don't know where you are, but the sun is shining here and it's a lovely autumn day. So I'm enjoying no rain at the moment.
We're in the same, we're here in Utah, and I'm actually on farm right now. So we're enjoying a very beautiful day here as well.
Very good. Good. So hopefully it's a nice day across the country then. We've been getting hammered with rain, so I'm very thankful for some sunshine at this point. It's been just rainy, damp, and cold, and harvest has been challenging to say the least up here in the Northeast. So we're getting by, and I think we're about 99% done. So thankfully, we'll be right there. So diving into this, I don't know if you want to start by just giving people an idea of Renaissance Ag as a whole. What is Renaissance Ag? What are they doing? And I guess let's start with that.
Okay, will do. Renaissance Ag is a relatively new startup company that has started looking into controlled environment agriculture. We have developed a system and a series of systems on different scales that can sprout and grow microgreen type feed for animals indoors. So it's quite a it's not a brand new concept, but we feel like with our automation technologies and some of our research and science, we've taken it to a little different level. And we have some really exciting things going on with that now, and have come to learn a lot about the impact on nutrition in animals with this sprouted feed.
That's awesome. So do you want to talk a little bit more? So you said indoor cropping. So do you want to go a little bit more into a depth of how that actually works, or what that setup would look like to someone who isn't familiar with that?
Yes, would love to do that. We have two systems. One is basically started out as a 45 foot shipping container. And within that container, it was an insulated, controlled environment space. And we had a series of trays and watering stations that where we could take seed and put it in these trays, and in 6 days produce 8 to 9 inch sprouted product that was a premium feed. We use a technology where it's all automated, so the trays move automatically. The seeding happens automatically. The temperature control is all automated, and the harvest is also automated. So basically, by the push of a button, a farmer can turn on a machine. It will seed, water, and harvest itself, and seed to feed in 6 days. We've also now recently increased the volume of a system that can be put indoors, or be a self-contained unit that can produce up to 16,000 pounds of sprouted feed a day, and on a much larger scale. So we're really excited about that, and find that it has a big opportunity for even mid-sized to larger producers that would like to incorporate some of this fresh feed. We grow.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, we grow on a 7 foot long tray that's 2.5 feet wide. And in that tray, we put about 16 pounds of seed. And in 6 days, we'll have about 75 to 80 pounds of sprouted fodder come off that tray.
Very cool. So what exact kind of like microgreens are you experimenting with?
We've done some testing on about 14 different seed types to this point. We've kind of mainly focused on sprouting wheat and barley because it's so easy to source. It's usually a little cheaper. In this sprouted product that we grow, the seed cost is the primary the biggest cost of that sprouted product. So finding good seed source is key. But we sprouted anything from sunflowers to alfalfa to beans to peas to a bunch of different other specialty crops, and are looking at different seed profiles depending on the needs or desires of or the nutritional components that people are looking at. But so far, wheat and barley have been the mainstays. We've sprouted, mainly sprouting those.
Very interesting. It's farming of the future for sure. And this is in just seed sprouting in water, correct? Right? There's no soil involved. It's just a
Correct.
hydroponic system.
Correct. No soil or substrate. We learned a few of these seed types, like especially alfalfa or beans, that that have more of a taproot system, are a little more challenged in this type of environment. But boy, the grains like barley and wheat form a supporting root mat so quickly and so well that it's able to support that sprout that goes up, and they grow very well in just a water environment. That the trays actually drain, so basically the seeds absorb the water as we have these irrigation stations, but we basically just keep them moist, and they do just fine.
That is really cool. So what with the challenges of water in certain areas of the United States, what is the I guess sustainability as far as the water is concerned? Like, are you able to, when you drain that water out, reuse it on different seeds, or how does that go about?
Um, the first point I'll make about that, it's very we've had a lot of interest here out west, especially in Utah, because we are so dry. We're a desert environment, and so the first thing I'll say about that is that sprouting the grain and growing it to the stage that we grow in the environment, it uses about 90% less water than if we tried to grow it in an environment with soil. So there's a huge water savings to start out with just the way that we sprout it. Then we are also trying to recapture the water. It there is some organic material that sometimes, and so some filtering and cleaning water adds some cost or expense, and so we haven't done a lot there yet, but we do have other places where this water can go, and so we try to use 100% of it in the systems that we use. So it is very water efficient, and we are looking especially at water sustainability out here in the desert.
Definitely important, especially in 2023 where we're at with the water challenges across the country. We're either too wet or too dry, it seems like. So, how many of these systems exist in the United States at this point?
At this point, with Renaissance Ag, we have a few competitors out there that are doing some other creative things. But with Renaissance Ag, we have two systems that are running. One here in Utah at a large sheep operation, and we have one out in Kentucky. So we
Very
have
good.
two large systems running right now.
Okay, and then so what does the farm in Kentucky, what do they have? Or are they just growing the microgreens?
Actually, they're kind of a unique. Um, where they've used our technology to branch into something a little bit different. And so they actually are using the automated tray system to grow black soldier fly larvae. And
Okay.
so as a protein source for, again, for animals, they are using this automated tray system and watering system to grow black soldier fly larvae. And we're finding that these larvae fit into a sustainability system very well because they can utilize many waste products, and with their enzymatic digestion, they can digest many of the waste products from animals, and then be a source for using up that waste, but then turn around and become a income source with protein, fat oils, and energy, and they've been very, very efficient at doing that.
So what would someone actually use them for after they were grown?
They dry them, and currently there is quite a demand for them in the pet food industry,
Oh,
and also they can be used as a great protein source in poultry, and they're already approved for poultry and swine, and
okay.
we're looking at maybe an opportunity to get them into being fed to ruminant animals as well.
Interesting. So there's a whole nother feed source that could be coming out of this new technology. So that's really, really interesting in the lines of sustainability and how the world is adjusting to create a more sustainable future for agriculture.
Yes, yes, very interesting, and they found us. Just because we were talking about indoor agriculture, but they said, "Hey, we think your technology can work in our space as well," and we found that we've been able to improve their efficiency greatly just because of our automation.
That's really cool. So you are also doing stuff with the Microgreens Institute, which is a part of Renaissance Ag. Do you want to talk a little bit more about what they do and what your specific role is within Renaissance Ag?
Yes, I'd love to do that. Um, so the Microgreen Institute, as Renaissance Ag was developing as a company, the CEO and president decided that they would like to have us be able to know the impact of sprouted microgreens, especially in animals, and that before we decided to market or develop a lot of this equipment, what is the real story about microgreens? And so they formed the Microgreen Institute. They hired me to lead that institute, and so I'm the director. And our mandate was to reach out and with some science based opportunities to find out what's the real value of the sprouted seed. So we have a seed scientist that we work with, an agronomist, and we've partnered with three universities that have helped us to try to tell the story about the impact of microgreens in animal feed. We have a really good relationship with Cornell University in New York, where we've done a dairy trial. We're working locally with Utah State University. We have a great partnership with them where we're doing some work with beef cattle, sheep, and animal reproduction being fed these microgreens. And then we also have done some good work with the University of Florida, who are helping us determine the real digestive value in ruminants for the sprouted seed, and the impact it can have on digestion, not only digestion of the sprout, but also how it can impact the digestion of other nutrients in the diet. And anyway, but we're about to publish a few amazing papers, uh, and as we look through the literature and the research that's been done in the past, there are a lot of things written on the benefits of sprouting, but not a lot of really good research has demonstrated the real value of it. And we feel like we have now come across some really good researchers and have some studies now that are going to kind of be pioneering in this area, where it's going to tell us that there really is an efficiency benefit to feeding these fresh sprouted microgreens on a daily basis to animals.
That's really, really fascinating. So I'm not sure how much of the research that's coming out that you can divulge, I guess. When you're feeding these to dairy cows per se, just because that tends to be what I know the most about, how much of the dairy cow's diet are you putting into those microgreens? Um, or is it like completely microgreens, or how does that work?
Um, I can talk a little bit about the research we did at Cornell. It's very, very good research. But first of all, I don't think this sprouted feed is intended to ever be a complete diet. It is very high energy, very good protein. It's very high in vitamins and total digestible nutrients. The fiber is highly digestible, and so it's a premium feed.
Hmm.
And so, like with most dairy diets, I do a little bit of dairy nutrition, and with most dairy diets, there's always a place for premium feed in a dairy diet, and it's not usually not intended to be the sole source of feed, but those dairy cows need a lot of energy, a lot of good protein, and this is a supplement that can definitely enhance most dairy diets. So at Cornell University, when we did this research study, we included it at a 10% dry matter level. So 10% of the total dry matter content of the diet was replaced and filled with sprouted microgreens. It was we did both sprouted barley and sprouted wheat in this study. And what we found was that these were all we love this study because these were all very high producing dairy cows. They're all giving over 100 pounds of milk. And in the as they went through this study, which lasted about 90 days, they were able to maintain their high production and level of components. And what we found in the study, that they actually ate less total dry matter. And so it improved their efficiency by about 10%, which most dairymen will recognize. If you can maintain good milk production by feeding 10% less total feed, there's a huge advantage there. And
100%.
yeah, so we are really excited about that study. It's going to show some good things. The sprouted feed will always tend to be a little bit more expensive than your alfalfa hay, your regular alfalfa hay, or but it will replace some pretty key high energy products in the diet, and we feel that depending on local feed prices and different times of the year, there can definitely be a cost advantage to feeding these fresh feeds every day.
Definitely. I can definitely see where there would be a huge advantage to farms, especially in different climates, like out in Utah, where sometimes they have trouble getting enough of their own feed, whereas it could step in and replace a little bit of that, make it a little bit easier. Maybe they had to purchase less other feed to put into the animal's diet. So I can definitely see where that would be a place, especially for the future, as these systems became more researched and more prevalent.
Yeah, and there's a few other advantages that we can talk about that just kind of show up as we look at feeding this feed. Number one is that um, it's fresh every day. So where most of the time on farms we put up feed and we store it, and we know that over time there is shrink
Mhm.
associated with any kind of stored feed. Having a system on a farm where you can have 100% consistent fresh feed every day, 365 days a year being produced is an advantage. The second is that we find that in the sprouting process, the seed is a pretty incredible little unit, and it produces enzymes that help break down the starch that's in the center of the seed, and some of the proteins and some of the fats, that is the stored energy process of the cell to get that cell machinery going. Those enzymes also will have a positive impact on the other ingredients in the diet. So your dry alfalfa hay and your haylage and your corn silage, those are um, high fiber components in diets, and these enzymes, as that fodder is added, will work on those fibers in ways that enhance the total digestion of the diet. So and then the advantages with water, the advantages with adding moisture to diets. It's a wet feed, and so it can have positive impacts in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I can definitely see where that would be a really great addition to someone's feed in multiple different ways. What other cool things are you guys doing as far as research is concerned besides just dairy cows?
Right now, we've got an interesting focus on sheep and lamb production. And so we just harvested some lamb this last week and are getting some of our data back on the efficiencies that we see there. We last month we finished 40 head of beef cattle, uh, and with a control and a treatment group, and we found some improvement in the quality of the beef, so that it where they graded a little higher, they marbled a little better, and then with the efficiency, where they didn't eat quite as much but yet performed as well, we saw some advantages there for beef producers. One of the most exciting things that we have come across is a researcher who recently has moved to Utah State University, who we have been doing some work with. Is His name is Dr. Stefan Van Vliet, and he has done some really interesting work on um, the micronutrients in sprouted feeds, and that the diversity that comes from adding a fresh feed, we find a bump in vitamins and other phytonutrients that we haven't looked at in a lot of depth before. But he is a researcher who has looked deeply into that, about the diversity for example, animals on pasture compared to animals fed in a feedlot with basically a monoculture of feeds. That there is a health benefit diversity. And so we're actually even diving into the impact of this fresh sprouted feed on how it might impact humans in their diet. So in the meat, milk, eggs, does having more fresh food or more diverse feed in that diet, can it actually impact our health by improving the phytonutrients in what we grow?
That's really, really cool because obviously you are what you eat. So if the things that you are eating are better, it would hopefully transpire into being a more nutrient dense food for us and our communities to consume. So that's really, really interesting. And I love the different things that you guys are doing with different types of agriculture, because it's not just dairy, it's not just beef, but I mean even into lambs and other animals, or the larva that you're doing down in Kentucky. That's really, it's very diverse and it's very interesting to hear of all the different opportunities for this type of farming system. I've just kind of started to hear a little bit about these farming systems, so it's really interesting to be able to dive in deeper with you being at the forefront of the research for those opportunities. Is there anything exciting in the future that you guys have coming up, or just getting these papers, these final studies published? What does the next 6 months look like for you guys?
There actually is a lot more exciting things that we're trying to work on and accomplish. We want to dive even a little bit deeper. There's still a lot of things that we don't know, but this phytonutrient profile is something that's coming along that will be big in the next year that we're working on. We've actually had multiple different types of farms reach out to us. Rabbits, the benefits of working with rabbits, swine and poultry have shown some interest. We've had a lot of interest from the Middle East because they're a very dry
Hmm.
uh, and very water conservative type area and actually the Caribbean has been a place of interest where these small units that are solid, like in a storage container, shipping container, could have an impact, especially when they get hit with storms um, and hurricane type situations where they can immediately after an event like that still have fresh feed available, and so they're looking at trying to become more feed independent rather than having to import so much of the feed. So we're looking a lot more into the economics and the benefits of having them in places where importing feed is a huge um, draw on their economy and also their sustainability. If any of the shipping um, supply chains go down, like happened in COVID, a lot of these countries, I think, have realized it's important for us to maybe have things in place where we're not so dependent on having feed shipped in. So those are
Yeah.
a couple of exciting things that are on our radar and that we're working with.
That's really exciting. You guys seem like you have a really bright future ahead of you guys, and the things that you're doing are just so beneficial, not only for the vertical farming that you guys are working on, but just sustainability and science and nutrition in general. And yeah, again, just trying to keep those supply chains there, having that fresh feed readily available. That's all really, really exciting things for agriculture. And it's fascinating to learn more about them. So I guess I want to backpedal a little bit and talk more about how you ended up in this position. I know that you are a licensed veterinarian. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about where you grew up, went to school, and things like that, how you ended up coming to a company like Renaissance Ag.
Sure, thank you for that opportunity. I grew up in a small town in southern Alberta, Canada. So I'm Canadian by birth, but grew up on a small beef operation and just loved agriculture, and looked forward to the opportunity. Loved science and wanted to apply some of that in my career, and so my goal was to go to vet school. So had an opportunity to travel south into the United States to attend school at Washington State, and from there was really drawn toward the dairy industry, just because of their progressive nature, their desire to improve efficiencies, to look at genetics, to look at cow comfort, and all the things that they do to try to enhance their production and efficiency. Was really drawn toward that. So my veterinary career really focused on um, uh, dairy management, dairy nutrition, and a lot of consulting. And so that was really a strong impact for me. And so, what drew me toward Renaissance Ag was again a focus on premium nutrition. And as they approached me, it was good timing in my career. I just had a couple surgeries on my ankles. I was
Oh,
uh, wearing dairy rubber boots and not standing on cement all day. And so it was good timing in that they really wanted to develop um, a knowledge of how this could impact nutrition in dairy cows. And so as they invited me to come on, that sounded like a really neat opportunity, especially to be involved in the nutrition research aspect of things. and that drew me into this new startup company. And it's been a wonderful, amazing ride. And especially as we look at the changing nature of the United States, where farmland seems to be being gobbled up by housing development, and we become more and more strapped for water resources, and the population just continues to grow in the world. We're gonna hit a time when we're gonna run out of resources and have more mouths to feed. That moving toward indoor agriculture is something that I think we're going to need to be sustainable. So that was exciting to me too. And then just being involved with agriculture has always been a love of mine. The people are the greatest. They're hardworking, love the land, love their animals, and that's just always been a great desire of mine, is just work with people in agriculture. And so that's a little bit about my background. Yeah, my degree is from Washington State, but has a strong emphasis on animal nutrition.
That's awesome. It's always good when you seem to find your calling at some point and you're like, yes, this is what I was meant to do. And that's always very exciting. And we're happy to have you in the dairy industry. I am quite fond of the industry myself, as I am drawn into it in multiple different ways. So I appreciate everything that you said about that. So I guess in wrapping up, I'm going to ask you a few just fun rapid fire questions. Just kind of fun to loosen up at the end. So I'm sure that you've done some traveling in your days. Where is your favorite place that you've ever traveled to, whether it be for work or vacation?
Well, you caught me at a really interesting time. I just got back from a trip to Japan.
Ooh,
And Japan was amazing. I spent some time there as a young person when I was 19 and 20 in Japan, and learned a little bit of the language, and had opportunities to travel around there a little bit. And so this was kind of a revisit. So I went with a couple good friends of mine. We met a good friend we knew in Japan, and so we just spent the last 2 weeks traveling through Tokyo and Osaka and Kyoto, and I've actually had an opportunity about 4 or 5 years ago to go back there and consult a little bit on some dairy farms in Japan. So I have a great love for the country of Japan, and it's a great place.
well, that's awesome. I'm glad that I got to chat with you after the trip because Japan is always one of those places I'm like nervous to go, but it does intrigue me all at the same time. So it's just one of those things. And then I
Well,
guess we will.
a lot more
Oh,
foreigners there this time than the first time around, and Google Maps makes it a lot easier to get around than it used to before. And Google Translate always comes in handy as well.
100%. And I guess a final question. We both have the love for the dairy industry. What's your go-to dairy product?
Go to dairy product. As you mean, as far as using in dairies, or consuming as a dairy
Cons
consumer?
Consuming, of course, because
I've actually developed a real love for the Fairlife protein drink. I've been trying to keep my weight a little more consistent, and anyway, it's been a really popular one in my family, and so the Fairlife protein drink has been a really good one for me.
I have a case of Core Power actually sitting about 3 feet from me. I am a huge fan of the chocolate elite, the 42-gram ones for after I go to the gym. So I
Yep.
share your love in that. So, Dr. Harding, do you want to just plug where people can find more information about Renaissance Ag and the great things that they are doing?
Yes, we have a website, renaissanceag.com. That's Renaissance and then AG at the end, .com. If you'd like to reach out to me personally, my email address is rob@renaissanceag.com. So love to hear from anybody that would like to get more information.
Excellent. And I know that Renaissance Ag is also very active on Instagram and I believe Facebook as well. So you can
Yes.
also follow them there and see the great things that they are doing for the future of agriculture. Dr. Harding, I want to thank you so much for joining me today on the Dairy Hour podcast. Again, if you guys like this episode, please share with a friend, tag, leave a review, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. Please be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and leave a review. You can find me on most social media platforms at Dairy Gal Val or online at dairygalval.com. Thank you so much for coming to the Dairy Hour.